Let us put our palms together. We respectfully invite Jiahhu Shifu to start the class. 3 half bows to Jiahhu Shifu.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
Ami Tuofu.
Okay, let us begin the class with 5 minutes meditation. When we practice the present mind in the present moment, focusing on the breath, we also practice non-judgment. Whether your meditation is going well or not, whether your sitting feels comfortable or less than comfortable, whether your mind can concentrate or unable to concentrate too well. You know the state. You know the state of your mind. But your emotions do not get stirred up. It is the practice of even-mindedness. No matter what the situation, the mind stays quiet and fully aware. In time, you will experience equanimity of the mind. Okay, let us begin the class. Where's the sutra opening, Gatha? Let's put our palms together in appreciation for the Buddha's teaching. Namo, fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo, fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. Namo, fundamental teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million kalpas. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize the Tathagata's true meaning. Okay, so we have been studying the 100 Dharmas. It's a very short scripture, a treatise written by Vasubandhu, the great Yogacara master. And we have learned so far that they classify all the things, everything in the world into 100 things, 100 dharmas. And there are 5 classes. The first class are the mind kings, or the mind dharma. They are the 8 types of consciousness: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body consciousness, the 6th consciousness, which is our everyday thinking and feeling mind, and the 7th and 8th consciousness. The 7th is the very subtle ego self. The 8th is like a warehouse that stores all the past experiences. And the second class are the mind concomitant factors, the mental states that work with, they are called forth and work with the 8 type of consciousness. So there are 51 in total, and they are the main stuff, the main teaching in the 100 Dharmas. And so far, we studied the first 3 of the 5 groups of 51 mental states, mental factors. The first are called universal factors. There are 5 of them, and there are 5 specific factors. Both of these 10 factors are very important. They occur frequently in our everyday experiences. And then the third group are the 11 wholesome factors. The 11 wholesome factors, and today we will finish them. And then the fourth group will be the fundamental unwholesome, the root unwholesome factors. There are 6 of them. And the fifth group will be 20 secondary afflictions, unwholesome factors. So actually there are 6 groups, and the 6th group, there are 4 indeterminate factors. So those are something we will cover next time. Next round of courses, which you will start, I believe, at the end of June. Okay. So let us look at last time. In the last course, we covered serenity and vigilance. So let us close our eyes and in our mind review what we learned last time. So serenity, it is a translation of a Buddhist term, which means it is like a halfway gate, halfway stop between the ordinary calm mind and a more advanced still mind achieved by meditative concentration. So serenity is when you begin to feel something different, an unusual calmness or serenity of body and mind. By unusual, we mean that it is not something you experience day to day, it is only achieved by meditation. So it is a very comfortable, very fulfilling lightness of being. This lightness of body is good. Your body feels light. Your mind feels unburdened. And you like it. It feels really nice. And this is what will give you the motivation and energy to continue on the path of meditation and Buddhist study, spiritual practice. You will feel that the reward is real. You will feel that meditation is rewarding. I feel really, really good. But this is not the ultimate yet, far from it. It's only the halfway stop, give you some incentive. And with that serenity, we can become more diligent in the spiritual practice, and that is called vigilance. We are vigilant in our spiritual and meditative practice. So by cultivating the wholesome factors and avoiding the unwholesome factors like greed and anger and ignorance and getting trapped in our emotions, by developing our wholesome factors like having an inner moral compass, being compassionate, uh, wanting to committing to meditation regularly, studying and understanding the Dharma teachings. And by studying it, understanding it, we mentally review it like now. Right now, we are mentally reviewing it so that we can remember them, remember the teaching, and that we learn how to use them in our daily life. So this is the spiritual practice. So by cultivating the wholesome dharmas, we are being vigilant. And through this serenity and vigilance practice and experience, we can eventually reach a state called equanimity. Okay? So let us learn what equanimity is. Renunciation is also translated as renunciation, upekesa. Its nature is that of vigor, meaning diligence, and the three roots that causes the mind to rest in equality, uprightness, and effortlessness. So equality or even-mindedness, uprightness. So the mind is awake, the mind is upright, the mind is on the right track, the mind is wholesome, that mind has energy. And effortlessness. See, when we are really diligent, when we are vigilant, sometimes it could be tiresome. You use too much energy. After a period of time, you may feel a little bit tired or even stressed. But this is different. This is effortlessness. It's activities that are countering agitation or restlessness and calming the mind. Impurities are eliminated at first through vigilance, and then equanimity causes the mind to rest calmly. So here is the process, right? Serenity, vigilance. So a key part of vigilance, being vigilant in our spiritual, Buddhist practice, is to be able to uh, letting go of the unwholesome uh, mental states, like being able to uh, not pursue our greed, being able to not let our anger go wild. Yeah. And in a challenging situation, we can remain calm and the mind can remain sharp and rational, right? So that's part of the Buddhist practice. So over time, over time, we become good at this. We are slowly eliminating the impurities of the mind. It's like you have a window, right? You have a window and there's some dirt, some stains over time. So you take a cloth and you wipe it off, and the window is clear again. Yeah, the window looks nice, it's clear. So our mind is like that. Our mind is originally clear, clean, wholesome, but then we get contaminated by our greed, anger, our desires, our these impurities, these contaminants, right? So now through the diligent practice, through the meditation, through the Dharma study, like right now we're doing, we learn about the right track, the right way to live our life, how to manage our emotions, how to deal with difficult situations. And so now, through this repeated practice, remembering the Dharma, applying it, then we slowly eliminate these impurities. In other words, we change our behavior. We change our perspectives and change our behavior. We learn there's a better way to react, a better way to interact with people. That's characterized by wholesomeness, by good karma. So when impurities are eliminated, and actually that is what causes the deeper lightness or unburdenedness. Our mind gets unburdened when we don't get trapped in our emotions. Our mind that gets unburdened feels light, feels at ease, feels free when we are not weighted down by the greed, anger, and ignorance. Okay, so when the heavier impurities are lifted, for example, if somebody criticize you, yell at you, maybe you used to get upset for half an hour, but now within a few minutes you can deal with it, and then you don't cling to it as much. You say, okay, what's the big deal? That's your point of view. I can use that as a reference, but I don't have to feel bad about it. So now through the Dharma practice, you can deal with it within 2-3 minutes. That is what I mean by the heavy impurities are eliminated. By you got rid of the heavier. The heavy meaning that it weighs your mind down. It makes you feel stressed and worried all the time. Okay, when that is eliminated, you first uh, feel that serenity, and then by repeated practice, your serenity is temporary. You may feel serene for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, or maybe even throughout the whole meditation session. But when the meditation ended, then you most likely return to the ordinary state of mind again. Okay, but by vigilant practice, then this lightness, this unburdenedness stays even beyond meditation. Okay, because your mind learns to face situations with an even-mindedness, with this renunciation. Renunciation means that you don't cling to the good or bad so much anymore. You renounce that attachment. Okay, that's a key. That's a key characteristic of being able to reach equanimity. And that is why eventually, when we achieve a deep state of equanimity, there's that effortlessness. What the effortlessness, you are able to achieve this calmness, this even-mindedness, this approaching stillness of the mind. The mind is still. The mind is at ease. The mind is free. The mind is not trapped. Is effortless. Comes from being unattached. Okay? You have a situation, you deal with it. You face it, you deal with it, and you let go. That is what makes life, everyday life, feels effortlessness. It's not that you don't put in any effort into the tasks, into your responsibilities. You do. But then it's unburdened by the mental stress, unburdened by the worrying and the anxiety. That's what makes it feel effortless or free. So it is like a engineer, let's say a experienced engineer deal with engineering problems all the time, every day. But his mind is not stressed. His or her mind is not stressed. They just deal with it. There's a situation, I deal with it. I solve it and I move on to the next thing. So every day we have things to deal with. We deal with it without the emotional weight burdening us. Okay. So equanimity is a combination of three wholesome roots and diligence, just like vigilance. Okay, just like vigilance. It is often the result of impurities eliminated through vigilance. So that's why you feel calmness, stillness, peacefulness, and a deeper and a longer lasting serenity. So let's compare that with serenity, which we talked about last time, right? How does equanimity relate to the serenity discussed earlier? So imagine pushing a stalled car, okay? So you have a stalled car, you put it in the neutral gear, right? And then a couple people need to push it, the person in the driver's seat, and you push it. Initially, it requires a lot of effort, a lot of energy, a lot of force, to keep it, to make it, to make it move. So it requires diligent, heavy effort to overcome that inertia. So serenity is that moment the car finally begin to roll, begin to move, the burden is lighter, and the car becomes capable of sustained movement. So once the car starts moving, the stalled car, then once it gets moving, you don't need so much force. Maybe even one person can push it, and the person in the driver's seat can get it going. And as you continue progress with continued vigilance, the car gains momentum and glides smoothly, or maybe even you're able to start the car. Okay. At this stage, it moves forward with minimal exertion. Once the car moving, maybe is even on a slight downhill, okay, then minimal effort is needed. You still need some effort. The person behind the car is still pushing, but then now it's very little effort and the car just glides. So this state of effortless, balanced flow, this balanced flow in the mind is equanimity. Born from stable, sustained vigilance. So the previous effort, vigilant effort, is crucial. It's an integral part of being able to experience that equanimity. And this vigilance is needed because we are so used to this dualistic thinking. The dualistic thinking, judging all the time. This I like, this I don't like. Whatever I like, I pursue, I want more, I have desires, I have cravings. Whatever I don't like, I want to avoid it. I'm afraid of it. I hate it. I want to reject it. I want to push it away. It doesn't go away and I get stressed. So our everyday life is our sixth consciousness is so used to judging all the time. judging people, judging situations, this dualistic effort that makes our mind always associated with some emotions. Okay, so through the vigilant effort, we learn to face both good and bad situations with an even mind, with a mind of equality, uh, without all that emotional drama. Okay? And with practice, day after day after day after day, with practice, we become good at this. And then we are able to reach a state, especially during meditation, we're able to reach a state deeper than serenity. It is just like serenity, but deeper. And there's less of that feeling good. It's funny because serenity is a good feeling. As you sit here, the whole body feels great. But if you want to go deeper into the meditation state, if you want to go deeper into the concentration, the clarity of mind, you need to not cling to the good feeling, even though it feels nice. You don't cling to it. You experience it. It's okay. You don't need to avoid it. You don't need to stop. You just keep going. Keep going. Continue to focus on the breath or continue to become aware of the body or continue to contemplate on the Dharma. And then, and then as time goes on, as your meditation goes on, you may be able to reach a deeper state of even-mindedness, that is equanimity. So equanimity is less associated with a feeling good, but more of a neutral state, a very deep and definitely unusual. Unusual means not ordinary state of mind, not your ordinary experience. It's an even deeper meditative experience of having the mind ultra clear, ultra still, right? That's equanimity. And in the essence of equanimity is letting go. The perspective is non-duality. Okay, so in our meditation teaching, so our January half-day meditation video and our February meditation half-day meditation video, our February half-day meditation video will come up pretty soon within by the end of before the end of February. Okay, we did this the first Saturday of February. So these two half-day meditation and our awakening hour, our Sunday morning meditations, we continue to talk about the present mind. And we are talking about non-duality right now. So non-duality doesn't mean that the mind doesn't know good from bad, doesn't know right from wrong. That's not a non-duality. Non-duality means that I see the good and the bad, I see the right and the wrong, but then I know they're relative. They're situational. They're not absolute judgments. I know the limits of this judgment. And I know when to apply it and when not to apply it. I know that we don't cling to it. Okay. We don't generate emotions associated with these judgments. Okay. We know that they actually complement each other. They are the two sides of the same coin. Okay, what can be good? What is good can lead to bad, and what's bad can lead to good. It's like the yin yang symbol. Okay, so we see a whole perspective of what is right and wrong. The dualistic things, they're not opposite. They're actually two sides of the same thing. So this non-dualistic view is true wisdom. It's an essential Zen wisdom. The Zen wisdom is associated with emptiness, the emptiness of good, or intrinsic good or intrinsic bad. So this perspective, non-duality, is wisdom. With that perspective, uh, we can practice non-attachment of the emotions, non-attachment of the judgments. So that's why we are able to let go. So the effect is stillness and clarity of the mind. Remember, I repeatedly stress that the main um, components of Zen meditation or Buddhist meditation is concentration and clarity of mind, awareness, right? So concentration leading to stillness of the mind is stability, a very deep, stable, and stillness of the mind. And awareness, the mindfulness practice leads to a heightened state of clarity of mind. And so that's what you begin to unlock when we reach equanimity. So equanimity is not the end, it's the real beginning of the real reward of meditation. When the mind is in deep samadhi, it can experience profound serenity and joy. Okay, so the serenity can become more profound experience, a deeper experience. If the mind clings to these joyful feelings, this joy is called a Chan joy or meditative joy. Okay, if the mind clings to this joy, you can become attached to this. Oh, meditation is great. I just want to meditate all day. I want to just experience that serene joy. If you become attached to it, then there's no equanimity. You won't be able to go into a deeper insight that is waiting for us in Zen meditation. The deeper insight is more resonant with equanimity, this non-judgment, this even-mindedness, okay, this clarity of mind. So important, the mind must be willing to give up the Chan joy by non-abidance, by non-attachment to the feelings in order to experience equanimity, which is a deeper, more stable state of mind that helps gain even greater clarity of mind and therefore deeper insights of reality, deeper insights of reality. So this is where we knock the door of enlightenment. Okay? This is where we approach and we knock, and maybe even one day we open the door and achieve enlightenment. So as long as our mind is always judging and clinging to this and that, some people feel, oh, life must be exciting. I want to be on this roller coaster ride. Great joy and great sadness. That's called experiencing life. As long as you're trapped in that style of life, there is no enlightenment. There is no deep insight. It's when you give up and achieve a clear, stable state of mind that is subtle, sublime insights into the reality of life will come in. Okay. So let's say you practice sitting meditation a while, for a period of time, maybe half an hour a day. You practice walking meditation after the sitting meditation. By the way, it is always a good idea to do walking meditation for a while after sitting. So you do the walking meditation, and walking meditation is a wonderful way to practice this even-mindedness, this non-attachment, emotion. Okay, so you're moving, you're walking, you're simply being aware of the whole body as you move, as you take step by step. If you see a beautiful sight, you don't cling to it. If you see some dog poop on the side, you don't get bothered by it. So you just walk, and the mind reaches a very calm state. You may experience moments of equanimity. Okay, even in walking meditation, not just in sitting meditation. Okay, so that's the essence of equanimity. Now, there's some advanced knowledge about equanimity. Equanimity in Buddhism appears in different contexts with subtle differences. There are 5 types of equanimity, which I have listed here, but I'm not gonna go into it because I think that's maybe a little bit too academic, a little bit too much knowledge for now. Okay, so you can definitely read it on your own, but remember what is important about equanimity and its relationship with serenity and vigilance. Now, question. The essence of equanimity is letting go. How is this different from giving up, cold-heartedness, and being apathetic? So giving up is kind of a negative state, right? State of mind. Being cold-hearted, sometimes people mistake non-attachment with being cold or being uncaring, yeah, apathetic. So let us open the chat room, see if we can know, if we can discern the difference between being equanimity, the equanimity and letting go, and how is it different from giving up and being cold or being apathetic? Let's think about this for a moment. Anybody want to try? Write in the chat room. What do you think? So we want to reach equanimity of mind. Remember that knocks the door of enlightenment and at least deeper insight. But how is that different from being apathetic and uncaring? Or if you have a question, if you are not sure about this equanimity, you can certainly ask questions as well. Okay, let's see. Letting go does not cling to any emotions. Others cling to negative feelings. Okay? Yeah, that's a good point. So giving up is kind of like, oh, I can't do anything. My effort won't make any difference. That's actually a negative emotion, right? That's actually a negative emotion. You feel low. You'll feel bad about yourself. You'll feel incompetent. So that is actually a negative emotion. So you're clinging, a person is clinging to that negative emotion uh, when they give up. It's a sense of a feeling of powerlessness, right? No confidence in themselves. Okay, so that's different from equanimity. Okay, equanimity is different from apathy due to allow yourself to feel the feelings initially, as in you don't block yourself from feeling certain feelings, but you are simply don't hold on to them. That's a good point. That's a good point. At first, when a situation comes, we still have these initial feelings, okay? But compared to our diligent practice before, these feelings can go on for a long time. Yeah, the feeling of craving, the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of stress, the feeling of anger, this anger. So it may stay for a while. And in the mindfulness of feeling teachings, which Shifu taught last year in our meditation talks, we analyze this in great detail, right? So they stay a long time because we are adding fuel to the fire. Our perspective is that this is a negative situation. You are being bad to me. You are hurting me. So that perspective fuels the fire of anger, and that exaggerates, makes the the emotion blow up. So this negative cycle. But by practicing mindfulness of feeling, by practicing objectivity, and by practicing letting go, by practicing emptiness of anger, emptiness of badness, bad karma is not necessarily bad for you. Somebody criticizing you or yelling at you may be a great chance to practice Buddhism, to practice the compassion or practice interdependence, so you become wiser. So you change your perspective. By changing the perspective, your feelings can flare up at first, but then you don't cling to it over time. You let go, you find it easier to let go. Okay, you remember that, hey, somebody being mean to you is not necessarily a bad thing. And I'm not powerless to that. I can remain confident. I can face off the situation. I can hold my own ground, right? I can just ignore that person. I can just ignore those words. Or I can take this criticism in stride. Yeah, if they're useful. So I figure out that I don't have to be hurt by those words. So as a result of all this practice, the negative emotion, the hurtful feeling doesn't stay and you let go, right? So that's different from apathetic. Now, eventually, when we become really good at this practice, when we have anchored our right view, so that as soon as something negative happens, as soon as somebody is being, challenging to you, immediately your thought is that this is not negative. This is just everyday life. There's neither good or bad. I can face this. I can deal with it. So return to the engineering mentality that Shifu talked about before. Well, an engineer faces all sorts of issues every day at work, but he doesn't see that negatively. They don't see that negatively. It's just work. It's just life. Right? You deal with it and you let it go. Okay? So same thing with people relationships. Yeah? So it's different from apathy. You understand the situation, you see it clearly, and you deal with it. You face it. You're not avoiding it. Apathy is kind of avoiding it. I don't want to deal with it. I pretend I don't see it. Uh, I don't know how to deal with it. I run away from it. Okay. Equanimity is different than indifference because you care more deeply but not attached to the consequence. That's a good point. Equanimity is not that you don't care. It is a deeper sense of caring, but it's a caring without emotion, the weight of emotional burdens. Okay, you're not burdened by the emotion. So a lot of time when we care, there's a emotional burden. You get weighed down. You feel heavy because you care. But think about a really good doctor. Say you are a doctor in a hospital and you're very skillful. You're the top expert in your field. So every day the doctor faces many patients and these patients are ill. The doctor just do the expert, you know, thing that he does. He diagnose, they give him the best advice, uh, and then he moves on. It's not that he doesn't care. He care enough to give you the best medical procedure or advice. He wants you to heal quickly. He uses all his knowledge, all their knowledge to help you heal, but he doesn't get attached to it. Now, it's really difficult with people we care about, right? people in your family, people you care about. It's really difficult to care without an emotional attachment. That is what, in fact, that is what being entering the monastic life is about. Entering the monastic life is not that you don't care about your family anymore. It's about how you can better care about all sentient beings. You have to have this mind of equanimity. Okay? So when you become better at the Dharma practice, when the emptiness teaching is anchored deeply in your mind, when you view everything this way, then you can more rationally, you can make better objective judgment on how to care for that person, how to give that person advice without being weighted down by emotions, by emotional attachment. Okay? So in that case, the initial emotion may not even flare up, but that's quite advanced. The difference is the insight. You don't beat on a dead horse. Okay, good. So the difference is the insight. Yeah, that's a key difference. There's an insight of non-duality that a person who's apathetic, who is indifferent, who is giving up, they don't have that insight. So the insight gives you the power to face the problem, to face the issue and deal with it. When you don't have the insight, you feel hopeless, you feel powerless, you feel like giving up. You feel like avoiding the problem. So that the insight is a key difference, right? Equanimity is a calm balance, non-dual. The other ones are not pleasant feelings and they are dualistic. Yes, good point. So giving up, cold-hearted, apathetic, they are very much entrenched in the dualistic view still, right? Letting go allows people to fully experience without being tied down to emotions, attachments, or fears. Even if we follow the current of a river, we can still be attentive and steer ourselves in that current instead of doing nothing like apathy. That's a good analogy. Let's say you're going down the river on a boat, right? If you're really good at this versus you're a newbie and on a boat going downstream on the river. Sometimes the slope is steeper and then you're going faster. If you're unexperienced, you get very stressed. You tighten up and you don't steer as well, right? So that means you're facing the challenges in life. Things are coming at you very fast. And because you're inexperienced, because you worried, uh, then you don't perform the best and you get really stressed out. And you may say, stop, I want to get out of the boat. But if you become really experienced, whether it's, the boat is going fast or slow, the water is very rapid or not, if you're really experienced, you just do it. You can make these judgments quickly and you let go. See, you're making judgment all the time, but you're letting go all the time as well. Right? Especially when the boat is going real fast. You need to be able to make moment to moment judgments. And as soon as that, that steering, how much force and, how you shift your weight, as soon as that is made, that judgment is made, the action is taken, you let go so that you can take a new action. You can shift your judgment. Uh, uh, you can shift your action in the next moment. It's like you're in a kung fu practice, right? You're facing an opponent. Every moment you need to be very alert, very aware, and you're making making these decisions quickly, but you're letting go as soon as that decision is made, so that you stay in the present moment. You could make that moment, you can make the right judgment in the next moment, and you let go. All right, so there's no conflict. Letting go and taking action. Be fully with it. And that requires an even mind, a mind of equanimity. For example, when I found the injured hummingbird, I cared for her in the best possible way and took her to the rehab by not keeping on thinking about her. If she survived, it's good. If not, okay. We all need to let go of the body one day. So yes, when you're taking care of some little animal or maybe a patient, uh, and even yourself, our body will disintegrate and we'll need to let go. The equanimity mental state is the best way to handle that. Okay? Equanimity is not being attached to any emotion, even pleasant ones, right? So, ironically, okay, so there can be a misunderstanding. Okay, if I don't cling, if I don't enjoy and cling to the pleasant feelings, then life will become boring. So equanimity is not feeling bored. All right. Some people may mistake. Okay, I don't cling to the good. I don't cling to the bad. I don't cling to the pleasant. I don't cling to the unpleasant. Then that could be a sort of a boring, no action, just a very dull state of mind. It is not dull at all. The mind is very sharp, aware, clear. And even though you're not clinging to the joy, you're not clinging to the pleasure, that's when you experience a deeper sense of satisfaction. Okay? A deeper experience of fulfillment, a deeper sense, a deeper experience of fulfillment and satisfactoriness can only be achieved by not clinging to the joy. As long as you cling to the joy and pleasure, whether it's mental or physical, the experience is pretty coarse. In the Buddhist view, the state of mind, from coarse to subtle and sublime, the physical pleasure or even the mental joy, they are pretty rough, pretty coarse. Okay, it's like a kid. It's like a kid enjoying playing in the mud. And the adult say, man, that's nothing. That's pretty silly, pretty basic level. Okay. An adult enjoys a deeper level of joy, like enjoying art, reading a good classic book, and so on. Okay. But then this is even deeper. This is meditative fulfillment. It's even deeper. It's kind of difficult to imagine because you have to experience it yourself. Okay, serenity give you a hint. Serenity that we talked about earlier is already a state. Remember, Suze is unusual, right? It's not an everyday experience. So serenity is already a state of feeling really nice, but not from excitement. It's from not clinging to any excitement. So it feels serene. But you go deeper into equanimity, and that the deep stillness of the mind uh, is a a longer lasting state of uh, even-mindedness. Uh, is closer in character to nirvana. Okay, equanimity is the acceptance. Letting go is to let go of attachment in order to gain freedom and reach enlightenment. Giving up is losing hope for spiritual growth. Yes, correct. Equanimity is the acceptance of reality. seeing things exactly as they are. So it's called tathata or suchness. Without fighting them, giving up is kind of resistance. Yeah, good point. Giving up is there's still a resistance. Okay. Cold-heartedness is ego inflating itself. And apathetic is ego protecting itself. Good point. Okay. Cold-heartedness is ego inflating itself. Yeah, so maybe when a person is cold-hearted, maybe they think themselves is above everybody else. So everybody else is unworthy. So it's ego inflating itself. Apathetic is ego protecting itself. Good point. A lot of times when a person becomes apathetic, they're actually just protecting itself. It's more of a fragile state of mind inside, and you feel the need to protect yourself, which is not a bad thing because they don't know a better way. But there is a better way, right? It is like a tree blooming with flowers, not resisting the change of seasons. It flowers when it is time to bloom, not feeling proud, thinking it's giving. When the leaves fall, not feeling despair of loss. That's a really good analogy. So the plants go through the four seasons, right? So right now we just toward at the tail end of winter, at the beginning of spring. So in the winter, when winter comes, when fall comes, right, all the leaves fall, the tree let the leaves go without attachment. If it clings to the leaves, it does no good for them, right? When they let go of the leaves because they become a burden to the plant, it is able to stay alive on the ground with the roots. So above, there's no sign of life, but in the roots, it's still alive, right? By letting go. But in the spring, when it's warmer, then it's time to bloom again. So the new sprouts appear. Right now, you can see the new sprouts on these plants, right? So here at Prajna Forest Monastery, you see all these trees. It's still pretty cold. So the new sprouts are just beginning to appear. Just beginning to appear, reacting to the seasons naturally in a suchness way, as it is, as it should. Yeah, without judgment. The plants don't judge, they just react. They just reflect the seasons. So then it begin to sprout, and then some new leaves come. And then in the summer, you have the flowers, and the flowers are beautiful, but the trees are not proud. It's just the way it is, right? That's a really good analogy. Okay, good. I think now we see your points, then we have a better sense of what equanimity is. Remember, it is a state that, did we lose the share? Okay. So why don't we take a 5-minute break? You can mentally review what you have, what you learned today, or you can go get a drink of water, and we'll return after 5 minutes. Okay? Okay, let us continue. We come to the last one of the 11 wholesome dharmas, and that's the last one we will teach in this round of classes. So it's called non-harm. So earlier, remember we studied the three wholesome roots: non-greed, non-anger, and non-ignorance. And we also remember why they are called non, or non means really the opposite. The opposite of harm, the opposite of anger, the opposite of greed, the opposite of ignorance. So they cover a whole range, a wide range of states of mind. We also sing the combination of the three wholesome roots with diligence, which involve uh, serenity, vigilance, and well, vigilance and equanimity. Okay, so these 11 wholesome dharmas, we study them individually and just a little bit of their combination. So you can imagine how the different combination of different wholesome dharmas can generate all a plethora, a great range of uh, good state of mind. Good meaning wholesome and creating good karma. Okay, so non-harm. Let's look at what is non-harm. Non-harm is a kind of non-anger. It's a kind of non-anger. Whereas non-anger brings about more happiness, non-harm banishes harm and suffering in sentient beings. It is named as one of the wholesome dharmas to stress the importance of eliminating suffering. Okay? Loving kindness, which brings happiness, is primary example of non-anger, while compassion, which removes suffering, is a primary example of non-harm. Okay, so let's digest this a little bit. Um, you all know how compassion or being kind, being loving, being compassionate is a crucial um, quality in Buddhist practice. Uh, so, but we distinguish two types of compassion or being kind. One is called loving kindness, the other is called compassion. They're really the same thing. At the core, it's the same. It's being kind, being caring of others. But then they differ slightly. Loving kindness refers to the part of, caring for others, specifically to wanting to make that person happier, live better, happier, more free. And compassion refers to help that person get rid of suffering. Help person relieve that person of the unpleasant things in life. Yeah. So it's really the same thing. You're caring about the other person. Uh, but then we differentiate these two parts, two kinds, to stress the important that there's a slight difference in effort. What action you take to make that person happier, what action to take to help the person gets a relief from suffering. Okay, so non-harm and non-anger at the core is the same thing. You don't want to harm somebody, and anger harms people. So you can see non-harm as a branch of non-anger. Non-anger is the umbrella. Non-harm is the a branch, but it's important. So we bring it out and stress it. So non-anger brings about more happiness. When you're angry, you strip people of their happiness. Non-harm banish harm and suffering in sentient beings. So you can imagine when you're really, really angry, you can take actions. You can create karma that make people suffer, right? So non-harm is about that. That type of anger where the person can potentially harm somebody, make somebody suffer. And that's a really big part of life. We see that kind of thing happening in life a lot, right? So that's why we stress it. the importance of non-harm, not wanting to harm, not wanting to make people suffer is a wholesome Dharma, is a wholesome mental state that we want to cultivate, we want to practice. The ultimate level of compassion. Okay, so before we look at that, let's so this is a very simple idea. It's not a complicated idea like equanimity. Equanimity is a little bit more subtle, right? But non-harm is a very simple idea. Uh, you don't want to see people suffer. You don't want to you don't want to see people experience dukkha in any form. So this can be great suffering like death, uh, illness, casualty of war, living in poverty, having a really, really tough life, being hurt greatly. That is, you don't want people to suffer like that. But it also applies to small things. I'm so used to not talking the whole week. So when I have a class, my throat is not used to talking. All right. So it also applies to small suffering, like just a, just a little bit of feeling down, just a little bit of being angry. You don't want to see people being angry. You don't want to see people feeling a little bit of hurt. Uh, you don't want to see the people around you, not just people around you, anybody. For example, you see an old lady trying to cross the street, and she's moving with difficulty, and so you worry a little bit about, oh, would that old lady be able to cross the street safely? So you go help the lady, right? So that is an example of non-harm. You see that the hummingbird getting injured, you want to help that bird. That is uh, an example of non-harm. You don't want that little animal to suffer. Okay, so being a vegetarian is also a form of non-harm. I don't want to make the chickens, the pigs, the cows suffer. That's also an example of non-harm. Okay, so now we know what it is. The ultimate level of compassion or non-harm is stated in this verse. 无缘大慈，同体大悲. Great is the kindness that is unconditioned. Great is the compassion when all are one. So this covers the loving kindness part and the compassion part. The loving kindness is wanting people to be happy, right? Great is the loving kindness that is unconditioned. What does that mean? So who do you want to see? Who in your life do you want to see being happy? Well, you want yourself to be happy, right? You want your family to be happy. You want your good friends to be happy. You want the people you care to be happy, of course. So everybody feels that. Everybody wants that. But then it gets a little more difficult to, well, it's a bigger kind of loving kindness to want people you don't know to be happy. Do you want people you not related to you, just everyday people on the street? Do you want them to be happy? Some do, some don't care, right? Let's say you do. So then your kindness is a little bit, it's wider. It's bigger, it's wider, it's more unconditioned. What about people who have hurt you? People who had cheated you? People who had lied to you? People who had tried to take advantage of you? People who, you know, who have harmed you? People who spread rumors about you? Do you want them to be happy? Oh, that's hard. That's really hard, right? That's really hard. And so when we say great is the kindness that's unconditioned. Unconditioned means all people, including people who have hurt you. Now you say, but Shifu, that doesn't make sense. The criminals who hurt people, why would I want them to be happy? Yeah. Remember, so the idea of happiness or the opposite of dukkha, the opposite of suffering. Do you think criminals are really happy? Do you think they understand happiness? They don't. Uh, People who hurt other people, they're not really happy. They don't understand what is happiness. It's not the real kind of happiness. Okay? It's a short-sighted uh, pleasure or excitement or stepping on others. Okay? So we're talking about true happiness here. True happiness is being free, being unattached, having the wisdom to deal with issues in life, having the skillfulness to help different kinds of people. So equanimity, being able to experience equanimity and serenity and samadhi, having the Dharma wisdom to live your life in a wholesome, pure, and free way. True, experience true inner freedom. All right. And so that is the type of happiness we're talking about. The joy of wisdom, the joy of the understanding of the Dharma, the joy of deep samadhi. Okay. That's real happiness. So we want that happiness for all people. If the bad person, if the person who have hurt you, if the criminals can understand and experience a little bit of that kind of real happiness, they won't want to hurt people anymore. They won't want to be criminals anymore. They won't want to cheat and lie to people. So the best way to deal with these nasty people is to help them get enlightened. And that is the idea behind great is the kindness that is unconditioned. Great is the compassion when all are one. So in the same way, you want your family members to not suffer. You don't want your family to have dukkha, right? You don't want your good friends, people you know and care about, to suffer. That's normal. Everybody's like that. Even the criminals are like that. Right? Even the criminals, even the nasty people, they want their people they care about to be happy, to not suffer. All right. What about the neutral people, the people you don't really know? You don't know the everyday people on the street. Uh, do you want them to not suffer? I think that's not too hard either, right? Most normal people, most ordinary people, don't want people to suffer, even people you don't know. So that's okay. That's not too hard. What about nasty people? People who have hurt you, uh, people who are criminals. Do you want revenge? Do you want them to suffer as much as you have, or do you want them to suffer even more because they created, they make you suffer, right? So do you want them to suffer back? So it's very hard to forgive uh, the people who have made you suffer, who have generated dukkha in your life, right? So, but in this unconditioned compassion or non-harm, non-harm, the ideal is that we view everybody as ourselves. Everybody is ourselves. So I don't want to suffer. I don't want my family to suffer. I don't want the ordinary person, any regular person on the street to suffer. I don't want the nasty people to suffer either. Well, isn't it justice to make them suffer as much as the suffering they created? Well, do you think that the people who are nasty, who are criminals, who have caused a lot of suffering, when they experience the same or even more amount of suffering, do you think they'll repent? Do you think they'll turn into good people because of that? Well, some do. Some do, but not everybody. Some people, they suffer, they come out of the jail, they get even worse, right? So that's not really the way. Punishment is never the way to change a person. It's compassion. Ultimately, it's compassion that changes a person from inside. So if we think about the nasty people, the hurtful, the people who create harm, they don't know a better way to interact with people. They don't know a better way to get what they want. They don't have the wisdom of the Dharma. They certainly have not experienced the serenity, the more subtle joy in life, the deeper joy in life through meditation, through the insight of the Dharma. If only they had a chance to experience that, right? That's when they will change from inside out. So, Shifu have talked about before a person I met many years ago at the Zen Center, Sunnyvale. There was a man that's in the 40s, maybe close to 50s, between 40s and 50s. He come to visit me in the Zen Center. He explained to me that he was in jail most of his life because he killed somebody when he was 20 years old. I don't know the details, but he killed somebody when he was 20 years old, was put into jail for close to 30 years. But then while in jail, he learned about the Buddha Dharma. He even took the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. So when you take the 3 refuges, refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the monk, you're saying, I want to become a Buddhist. I want to live life in a way in accordance to the Buddha's teaching. That's what it means to take the 3 refuges. And I even went to the next step of taking the 5 precepts. No killing, the vow for the rest of your life, no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no intoxicants, including alcohol. So these are the 5 precepts. So he took the 5 precepts. He studied, he took courses while in jail, and eventually he got a college degree. And when he finally was released from the jail, he worked in a halfway home. He worked in a halfway home to help these teenagers who are a little bit astray, to help them, put them on the right path. Because he has this personal experience of how he made these mistakes when he was young, much, much younger. But he became a Buddhist, right? And so he devoted his life to help these these teenagers. So that's an example. Do you want the criminals to be punished, to stay in jail, or do you want them to turn into good people with wholesome mental states and live their life like that, right? What is the better way to repent for the harm you have done? So great is the compassion when all at one. So we need to think about this. We need to think about this so that in your mind, this begin to make sense to you. Even for these hardened criminals, even for really nasty people, if they can learn the Dharma and become enlightened, that's really the best solution for themselves, for us, and for the rest of the world, for our society. Do you agree? Do you agree? Yeah. So that is the non-harm. Now, it's still hard. If you think about people who have hurt you in your past, and it's very reasonable to still feel anger and wanting some sort of wanting them to suffer. That's ordinary. That's quite normal. But that's a characteristic of a human being, not the characteristic of an enlightened being. An enlightened being understands the Dharma deeply and wants enlightenment for all sentient beings. That's how enlightened view. Okay? So non-harm, again, it is a range of non-harm. Beginning with, you don't want to make, the people, so even people who are not necessarily your friends, people at work, the clerk in the store, you don't want them to suffer. You want to help make their life a little bit easier. That's non-harm. You don't want to give them a hard time. That's even though they are behaving in a rude or ignorant way, you don't want to give them a hard time. That is the beginning of non-harm practice. And when you go even further, you are always thinking of, how can I make your life a little bit easier? How can I bring a little bit of wisdom into your life? How can I shine more light into their lives? Okay. How can I help them to avoid suffering? So non-harm is not about indiscriminate loving. When loving is indiscriminate, that can actually bring harm, right? So if you love your kid, you let your kid do whatever they want, even when they are bullying other people, you support them, even though they gamble, and you let them give them money to gamble. That is not loving kindness. That is not helping them gain happiness. That is spoiling them. That is ruining their lives. You are actually creating harm, right? So you see that non-harm or compassion or loving kindness or helping others necessarily involves wisdom, necessarily involves the right view, the right perspective. Okay? So that's why earlier when we talk about equanimity, right, we need to have the wisdom of non-duality. Okay, now we can go even further with non-harm. So we talked about not wanting any human being to suffer, but we can go even further to all sentient beings. So all sentient beings, including humans and non-humans, any living being who can feel, who can experience suffering. Okay, so that includes animals, bugs, fish, birds. So, and there are other like hungry ghosts and hell beings. But let's think about animals. Yeah. Do we want animals to suffer? I think it's easy to say, I don't want animals to suffer. But then, do we actually think about all animals or just some animals? Right? Just like they are nasty persons, people who behave in a way that is causing harm, they are animals who are causing trouble in our lives, right? It's reasonable to want not harm for them. Okay? And also, what about chickens and cows and fish, those that most people consider food? What does it mean to want not harm to them? So think about that. All right? Shifu is not saying you should not do that. I'm just saying you should think about it. What makes sense to you? All right, the Avatamsaka Sutra says also, a mind of great compassion is the foundation of all Tathagatas. Tathagatas are Buddhas, right? Another name for Buddha, the such calm one, the person who lives their life in suchness, who sees everything in suchness, the way it is. The suffering of sentient beings give rise to great compassion. Great compassion gives rise to body-mind, and body-mind gives rise to supreme enlightenment. In other words, where do Buddhas come from? Where do Buddhas come from? Buddha come from a person who a long time ago have made the Bodhi vow, the Bodhi who generated the Bodhi mind. The Bodhi mind means, Bodhi means enlightenment, means awakening, right? So to generate, to give rise to the Bodhi mind means that I make a vow, I set my goal to be nothing less than the Buddhahood. I want to become a Buddha. I want to become fully enlightened. I want to help all sentient beings. That is the Bodhi vow or the Bodhi mind, the Bodhi state of mind. I want to achieve the supreme enlightenment, the Bodhi state of mind. So that's called bring forth the Bodhi mind. So by setting your goal for your life to become a Buddha, that is the highest goal possible for any person, any being, and to do. So it's the body mind that lead to eventually to Buddhahood. But where did body mind come from? Why would I want to bring forth the body mind? Why do I want to make the body vow? It's because I observe the suffering of sentient beings, and then great compassion arises. So the more you contemplate on the suffering of all sentient beings, not just the people you care about, but people you don't know, the people who are neutral to you, and the people who, even the people and the sentient beings who have hurt you. And from contemplating their life, how they come to be this way, how they are suffering themselves, then you see nobody deserves suffering. You have this great compassion, this non-harm mindset to the extreme, which is wanting all sentient beings to be enlightened, to free all sentient beings from any form of suffering forever. That is the Bodhi mind. And that's what leads to Buddhas. That's why Buddhas are possible. That's where Buddhas come from. So this is how important non-harm is. Is a mind of great compassion. Is the proactive side of non-harm, right? I want all sentient beings to not have any harm at all. That's the foundation of all Buddhas. Okay, so now we have looked at all the 11 wholesome dharmas. We certainly, don't expect anybody to have all of them, or to be able to achieve all of that in one fell swoop. But we certainly want to cultivate them. To cultivate is like a seed that sprouts and then grow bigger and stronger. So let us bring forth, cultivate these 11 wholesome dharmas and make them more important part of our life, all right? So wholesome dharmas lead to good karma, which in turn leads to beneficial impacts. However, wholesome or unwholesome are conditioned, relative, not absolute. Remember, wholesome, unwholesomeness is still relative. That means you need to consider the situation, who you're dealing with, to be able to do the right thing in the right situation. Okay? Question. Contemplate the causal chain in the meat-eating food chain from industrial farming to our tables. Be detailed in the steps of the process. At which point are harm being inflicted unto the animals? Do they deserve to suffer? Is it necessary that we eat their flesh? Are we justified in doing so? So if you really study, just look for information about which is where our meat come from, right? Most of our meat come from industrial farming. That means massive massive animal farms. Hundreds, thousands of animals are gathered together, and they are, well, anyway, go look for that information yourself. And from that, all the way to being the food on our table at every stage, what harm is being done. Some say that's their karma. They are born to be eaten. Do you agree? Is this argument sound? Chickens, they're born to be eaten by humans, right? That's their karma. That's their destiny. Do you agree? Some say it's a contract. We raise them in exchange for their meat. Is this argument sound? Is this a mutually agreed contract? So we mentioned that before, right? So think about this. I'm not telling you how to think, but you think about this. Some say if we don't, some other animals will eat them. Is this an argument? Is this argument sound? If I don't eat them, some other animals will eat them anyway. So eating them is no problem. Is this a good argument? Does it make sense to you? All right. Heart Sutra says all dharmas are empty in character. This means that good thoughts may actually lead to undesirable results sometimes. Is it possible that even non-harm thoughts can lead to actual harm? How so? If so, how can this be prevented? Right? So, is it possible that even non-harm thoughts, I don't want them to suffer. I don't want them to be unhappy, right? These are wholesome thoughts. But is it possible that these thoughts can lead to harm? How so? If so, how can this be prevented? All right. Okay. So we have some time. Before we open the discussion again, I want to show you that in our notes, I do have a problem set, an exercise set for the whole group, 11 wholesome dharmas. And there are a lot of questions. We don't have time to go through all of them. There are 24 thinking problems. There are a few Buddhist meditation practices associated with the wholesome dharmas. There are daily application exercises that I encourage you to take on at least one of them. More the better. So we don't have time to look at it, but come to the end of this course. But over the next few months, March, April, I will be mostly doing a solitary practice. But in March, May, and June, Shifu will interact with you online to review, to go through some of these exercises and to continue to answer questions about the Dharma. Okay, we certainly will continue with the awakening hour and half-day meditation retreats. So here are a preview of March activities. All right, so we don't have this course anymore for now. On March 14 and 15, there are two one-day meditation retreats. On March 14, which is a Saturday, it's a Chinese one-day meditation. And then on the 15th, on a Sunday, there's a one-day meditation retreat on site. It's in South Bay area. So if you're in the South Bay area, you can sign up for it. And on the 15th, that will be English. That is, sorry. That is at this address. We'll send you notices via email and on our WhatsApp group. We'll send you a notification. But there's 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. I briefly explained what the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts are. So these are 2 separate ceremonies which Shifu will conduct on the 14th at 5 p.m. between 5 to 6:45 p.m. All right. So it's best if you here in person, but if you are not in the Bay Area and you would like to take the 3 refuges, taking the 3 refuges means I want to become a Buddhist. I want to live my life as a Buddhist. And the next step is to take the 5 precepts. You can do this separately. You need to take the 3 refuges first before you take the 5 precepts. So if you have taken the 3 refuges, you can choose to take the 5 precepts. You can do them at the same day, one to another. Okay, or you can take the 3 refuges without taking the 5 precepts. So the ceremony will be held on on the 14th between 5 and 7. So for the first time, Shifu will open this online. So if you're not in the Bay Area, but you wish to take the 3 refuges and or the 5 precepts, you can sign up online. So in March, we'll send you the form, the notification. So then, but you do need to be online, okay, at the time. So there will be a Zoom meeting arranged. So 1 day meditation on the 15th. On the 17th, there will be an English online lecture. It's called Deconstruct the Self. So Shifu has a lecture series called Understand Yourself. The first in the series is called Knowing, Consciousness, Awareness, and Mindfulness. This talk is available on our YouTube site. So it's a really important talk. I encourage you to review it or to watch it if you haven't. That's the first in a series of Understanding Yourself. It's actually, that talk was given maybe 3 years ago. So actually it's a long time. I haven't been diligent in continuing the series, but now it's the second in the talk called Deconstructing the Self. That means getting to understand what we are made of. So it has to do with what we talked about in this course. It's about emptiness of the self as well. Okay. And this talk is gonna be online. So we'll send out the Zoom meeting information here. We'll send it out via email and WhatsApp again when the time is near. So keep that on your calendar, March 17th at 7 p.m. Pacific time. If you miss it, you'll be on YouTube as well. And we have the regular half-day meditation. So on the March 7th, Saturday afternoon in English, March 21st, Saturday afternoon, the third Saturday, it'll be in Chinese. Of course, we have the awakening hour every Sunday morning at 6 a.m. Encourage you to participate. You can also review these awakening hour videos. We have about 80 of them already. Okay. All right. So that's our activity for March. Now we have a few minutes. So let's open the chat room to any questions you have about anything in this course. Okay. So there is a message. How about forgiveness? I'm not sure what the context was. So Anna, you say, well, how about forgiveness? What is that referring to? Okay. The compassion to that life to be eaten is coming from your deep mind. If you have that compassion, you wouldn't ask that kind of question. While for people using such excuse to eat the meat, no need to argue or debate. Let them go to nature, feeling other lives, or watch them some documentary about all lives are equal. They may get answered by themselves. So it's about, the more modern the society is, the more we are detached from nature and other animals. Okay, in ancient China, small families, they have chickens and they may have a cow to help them farm the land. There's a tradition of not eating beef because cow, they worked all their life to help the farmers. It's an agricultural way of life, so they don't want to eat their meat. They still eat meat when they can, but there's that consideration. Many years ago, uh, a uh, a Muslim a Muslim teacher from Jordan, he was telling me that back in Jordan, they would eat meat in the Muslim way, but they only do it on Sundays. They only do it on Sundays. I was really surprised. I didn't know that. That's because they feel that eating meat is kind of a necessary evil. So the animals sacrifice themselves to be their food. And so they will only eat it once a week, and also only one type of meat at a time on the table. They will not eat multiple kind of meat on the table. So even if they eat meat, there's a connection. There's a connection with the animal, right? That they're eating. So right now we are so detached from the connection. If you actually live with a chicken or a pig, then it'll be difficult for you to to uh, to think about them as pork. Anyway, so do that thinking yourself. Shifu, you just mentioned how non-harming thoughts can lead toward harm. Can you please clarify? How, or maybe I misunderstood something. Okay, so let me clarify that a little bit. So many times, you know, so one familiar thing is in a traditional Chinese family. Chinese parents traditionally they want their children to study well, to do well in school, and to have a good career. Okay, sometimes the parents exert too much of their own will, and they force their children to go into a profession that they believe is the profession that will earn a lot of money and help ensure a stable livelihood. So some parents will force their kids to go into engineering, to become a doctor, to become a lawyer. These are the stereotypes. Be an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer because they make money. They make a lot of money. So but then the kid may not want that at all. They may not be where their interest is. They may totally hate it. So this is non-harm. I don't want you to suffer in life. Therefore, you must have a stable salary. And the stable salary is to go into engineering or to go to become a doctor. And they force it onto the kid. The motivation, the incentive is, I want you to have a good life. I don't want you to suffer like we did. Our parents' generation, they suffer a lot. They suffer a lot through this, 100 years of instability and humiliation and suffering and war and civil war, foreign enemies, and then try to divide the country, and then civil wars and poverty and all that. They went through a lot of suffering. So they think that a stable salary, stable job is crucial. And sometimes they force their will onto the kid, but they make the kid very miserable. Okay, so that is an example of wanting not harm, but actually causing harm because they fail to take into consideration uh, of the situation of the kid, what the kid is like. How does forgiveness relate to non-harm? Okay, so it's natural for us to feel that way. I want some sort of revenge when somebody hurt me. When somebody hurt me, somebody slap me, I want to slap him back. That's human nature, right? When somebody, make me suffer, I want them to suffer. I want to see them suffer. So forgiveness means that, no, I don't want to see them suffer. So that's how it's related to non-harm. I don't want harm to fall upon them because upon deeper thinking, I see that making them suffer is actually not the way to alleviate suffering in this world. Punishing the bad people is not the best way to get rid of suffering in this world. We have been punishing people. We have jails for thousands of years. But then criminals, they never vanished in any society. That's, it kind of works to prevent them from doing harm, but that's not the best way. That's not the best way. Okay. Assuming a moderately diligent practice, 30, 60 minutes of sitting meditation, 30 minutes of walking meditation, 30 minutes of Dharma study a day, when can I expect to find some of that serenity that was described? Very practical, very practical engineering mindset. Good. Okay. So first of all, a stable, regular practice is crucial. If you actually do 30 to 60 minutes of sitting meditation, 30 minutes of walking meditation, and 30 minutes of Dharma studies, that's about 2 hours, right? That's 1.5 to 2 hours. That's a really good practice. But there's individual differences, individual karma, right? I would say starting from ground zero. Let's say you're starting from ground zero. So now I'm committed to this 1.5 to 2 hours of practice. I would expect that you've experienced some level of serenity within a few months. If you have been practicing meditation for a while, if you have a semi-regular meditation, if you participate in some meditation retreats, 1 day, 2 day, half-day meditation retreats before, on and off for a few years, say, then it may come sooner. Okay, so serenity is not difficult. It's reasonable for anybody to achieve. So have that confidence. So, but it actually may take a few months. So you got to be patient. Or you may experience it quickly. The key is once you experience serenity, you may not be able to repeat it immediately, right? It may be another month before you experience it again. But that's quite normal because we haven't figured out how to reliably and stably enter into that state. And that can take actually a few years to become good at this. Okay, it's, the analogy is playing piano, right? So you're learning to play piano. It may take you a few years before you can reliably play a song, a new song, that is beautiful. People like it. It may take a few years. So meditation is like that. Okay, but it's definitely there down the road. You will be able to achieve it. So a regular reflection, say once a week, twice a week, you reflect on your current state of your mindset. And if you experience something close to serenity, you think about what did I do right and try to repeat that next time. Okay, to putting the right conditions together, learning the factors, the elements that make it work. It's subtle. It's subtle. It's not something, physical. Doing a physical experiment is actually easier because you can observe it, can measure it. But mental state is harder. But with practice, will become better. So have that confidence, you will be able to achieve it. All right? All right, we run out of time. So it's been really good to have all of you in the class. So that's the 100 Dharmas, and we'll continue with the second round of 100 Dharmas in late June or early July. So we hope to see you then. But meanwhile, we'll keep in touch in March. Okay? So take care and let us make the dedication. First, each of us make your own private dedication of merits. May the merits of our studying together, learning the wholesome Dharmas, learning the universal mental factors and the specific mental factors and the eight consciousness, may this diligent study bring us closer to serenity and equanimity and true wisdom. We dedicate the merits to all sentient beings. May they all have the chance to encounter the Dharma and eventually decide to take the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts. We also dedicate the merits to bring together the factors to have peace everywhere in the world by eliminating the 3 poisons and cultivating the 3 good roots. Okay, take care. We'll see you soon. Certainly we'll meet each other online on March 17th, okay? And before that, at awakening hours and a half-day meditation retreat.
Palms together. We thank Jiahhu Shifu with 3 half bows.
1 half bow to the Buddha.
阿弥陀佛。
Okay, see you all next time.